Khan, all praises to the Most High. All praises to the Most High. Right, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Right, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Right, you know, greeting to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. Right, pray everyone is doing well, man. Right, through the Spirit, everyone is doing well. Right, as you can tell by the title of the lesson, right, breakdown, whatever you want to call it. Right, the Passover draws nigh. Right, the Passover draws nigh, and Passover, right? Passover is not, you know, say, oh, it's not the Holy Communion. On a deeper level, yeah, it would be the Holy Communion, right? But it's not the Holy Communion that we see that Christianity has, uh, done a bad number on, right? Right. So gonna get straight into it, man. Right. Gonna get straight into it, man. Right. First, let's get the classic, man. Right. Gonna get the changing the format, man, on this StreamYard app, man. Right. But right anyway, right. All praise to the Most High. Right. Shalom to all Israel. That will watch or be edified or jump on link. But we're gonna get into this, man. Right. It's not gonna be super long, this lesson. Right, through the Spirit of and happy brew year, man. Happy brew year. Right. Right, happy brew year, man. This is let's go to that actually first, man. This is the month, right, of Abib. Right, this is the month Abib. Right, this is the first Shalom King. Right, this is the first month of the year, man. Right. So it's the book of Exodus. And really, in this time right now, you should be reading through the Exodus, man. Saying, okay, I just want to read about the Maccabees and how they slaughtered all the. Hey, well, let's read about the Exodus, man. Right? Because you can read about the slaughter there as well, man. Right? But this is Exodus 13:3. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which he came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of the hand. So like it, for by strength of hand, the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. Right. So this isn't just okay. Well, let's forget about. And people say, I forget about that, man. Forget about the Old Testament. Right. People say, I just forget about it. Right. That's the Old Testament. Right. Well, the Old Testament, just because it doesn't mean it's just a couple of lines. It's a couple of pages. Yeah, that's the Old Testament. Yeah, we're not the Lord. That's finished. Well, so what? Why aren't people walking around and unaliving everyone, man? Right? You can't. The Testament refers to the covenant or agreement. It doesn't refer to these chapters in the Bible that your Christian pastor doesn't want to read. Right? So it says that we should remember. Right? And if you're in this truth, right, you are trying to understand what's the point of this truth, or what do we do? And we have to remember, these high holy days, man. Remember this day, right? This day was hey man, it was a after coming out of the house of bondage, and the Israelites, they celebrated, man. Right? So we have to remember this day, right? And it says, for by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. Right? And that's what we are praying and hoping for. Right? Shalom to everyone that's on the live as well. Right? Shalom. Right? We have to remember this day. This isn't a day, okay, forget about it. Remember it, right? Reading on, right? And it says, this day, verse 4, it says, this day came ye out in the month Abib. Right? Let me pull it up as well. Right? Month Abib. Right? When you go into that word Abib, right, I believe it should tell you that it is um the greening of crops. Right? I believe that should be the greening of crops. Right? Let's see if I can. You gotta do all these weird things with these sharing screens. All right, you might as well just share the whole window. All right, so cool. Get rid of this. All right. So look, Exodus 13:4. That word Abib, right? The month Abib, right? And the word moon, right, means like new moon, right? Singling new month, right? So it says for the blue letter in the blue letter Bible, right? Arbib, right? So how they say it supposedly. See that? Right? So it says meaning to be tender. You see that? It says the biblical usage is fresh young barley, is barley, month of ear forming, of greening of crop, of growing green a bib, right? Month of Exodus, right? And Passover. And they say around March or April. And yes, people keep their feast days, right? They might keep it this day, that day. Hey, it's not, I don't hate to debate about that, right? There's, like the lunar calendar. Hey, you know, that's a whole different understanding, But as long as you're keeping it, right, all praise to the Most High, we'll say that, right? But WFI, that would be uh Friday the 11th, right, at sundown, right? And that's in the month that we're in right now, right? The greening of crop, right? That would be your new year, right? For the Israelites, right? This is Exodus, right? There we go. It's Exodus 12:2, right? It says, this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year unto you. So, right, the time of the Exodus, right? Let's see if I got my book with me. Right, that would be around this would be the first month when the Exodus took place, right? And the Exodus took place around 14 uh the 1400 BC, right? Let's say 1400 BC, right? And that's during the 18th dynasty um, of the Egyptians, right? And the pharaoh of that time, right, is Imanhotep the second, right? And his son, we kind of done a lesson on this. His son, right? There's a lot of archaeology that proves and shows you that, right? But point being, though, right, the Exodus, so like the Exodus, right, or the Passover, right? It's a very significant thing, just like the Sabbath day, man. The Sabbath day is a day I remember it, right? You got to remember it. And how do you remember it? Is by asking the elders, man, right? Asking the elders, right? And they shall tell you, right? And this is in the law. This is Deuteronomy 32:7. It says, remember the days of old, right? Consider the years of many generations. Ask that many generations isn't okay, your granddad and then your dad. You gotta go further than that, man. Right? It says, ask thy father, and he will show thee. Thy elders, and they will tell thee. So we gotta consider many generations, man. We gotta go to and look at the mighty things that the Most High done, man. Bashim Yahushai, man, for Israel, right? Many, many mighty works, man. Right? Through the hands of many mighty men, right? Many, many mighty men, right? So let's get this, right? It's the book, right, of First Maccabees, right? I get First Maccabees, I believe it's 2 or 3, right? Right, might be 2, right? First Maccabees, man, they talk about the mighty men, right, of old, right, that done great things, man, for the nation of Israel, right? This is First Maccabees. Yeah, I'll start from 50. First Maccabees 2:50. It says, now therefore, my sons, be ye zealous for the law, and give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. So if you give your life for the covenant of your fathers, that means what? You're gonna be taking part in it, man. Our people, we hate knowledge, man. We hate being rebuked. We hate the truth, right? And the truth is a powerful thing. The truth supersedes all things, right? That's why in the book of Sirach, I believe it's right. It says strive for the truth. Sirach 4 and I believe verse 28, right? It says strive for the truth unto death, right? Our people hate the truth. Our people hate having some form of discipline and following what the Lord says, man. Or the Bible says, I can't be a pimp. Oh, well, I don't believe in that, but right, you can't, you're never gonna be anything. You're never gonna amount to anything if you don't submit to something, man, or to someone. And we submit to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? And you have elders that teach you, right? Right, elders that are zealous for the Lord, man. That's the spirit we need to be in being zealous for the Lord, right? Giving our lives for the covenant of our fathers, man. If we give our lives for the covenant, that means what? We 10 toes down for it, right? All praise to the Most High. Verse 51, it says, call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time, so shall ye receive great honor and an everlasting name. So people read about Moses, they read about Aaron, right? Joshua, Eleazar, Phineas, right? Yahushai, Solomon, mighty men of the scriptures, man, right? Paul, John, the 12 apostles, right? They read, these are mighty men, right? That existed, man, right? And they actually existed, man. So they have, that's why people, whoa, they look, you got to look up to these people, man, right? That's why these scriptures, they're here for your hope, man. It says, call to remembrance. So just like we remember the day of the Passover, right? That time of the Passover, rather, we got to remember the acts that our fathers did, man, right? Rehearsing the righteous acts, right? Reading on, it says, I'm going to jump down, right? I'm going to jump down. I'll read through this point. It says, was not Abraham found faithful in see that? Temptation, that's meant to say, right? In temptation, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, right? So Abraham, he's one of these mighty men, right? It says, reading on, Joseph in the time of his distress kept the commandments and was made Lord of Egypt, right? Because Joseph was, he finessed the Egyptians, right? And from Joseph, you have the Exodus, man, right? So let's go into that, man. The Exodus, right? We want to go into that, right? This is Exodus 1 and verse 8, right? So again, in the 18th dynasty, you had a king that rose up that didn't know Israel, man. Because again, Joseph, he was made, right? Before that, right? Joseph was made king, right? He was under the king, right? And he was a king over everyone apart from the so-called Hamite king, man, right? This is the book of Psalms, chapter 105. And I'll start from verse, you see that? Verse 17. It says, he sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant. And the Most High can raise you up, man, right? He can raise you up and put you in a position of Joseph, man, right? He was sold for a servant, but look what he done for his people, man. That's why you got to have that spirit of looking at the acts of your forefathers and your foremothers, right? And record that to your mind and say, okay, they done that. What can I do, man? How am I building up? What offering am I bringing? Right? Reading on, it says, whose feet they hurt with fetters, he was laid in iron, because they put him into jail, right? Because he was falsely accused by some nasty Hamite lady, right? Saying, Joseph lay with me. And he said, right? Reading on, it says, I'll read on, it says, until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him, right? And the Most High, he'll use demons, man, right? Yes, the Lord, uses these spirits, right? To tempt people, man, and sift them out. Coming to the time of the Passover, man. Right? Passover is a few days away. Right? The Lord, he will try you. Is this guy really worthy to eat of the Passover? Right? Reading on. It says, the king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord over his house, of his house, Salakia, and the ruler of all his substance, right? To bind his princes at his pleasure and teach his senators wisdom, right? So, he people say, okay, the Egyptians, yes, they were yeah, a mighty nation, but when you can read the verses like Ezekiel 19, they were abased. It's like Isaiah 19, they were abased, right? You know, they were abased, man. And you can read in Jeremiah 37, man. I believe Zedekiah tried to call onto the Egyptians, right? And they were gonna help, and then they didn't help him. And then Israel was judged for leaning onto the Egyptians rather than him, right? It says, verse 23, Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham, right? So, Israel, right? Israel, Salakia, see that? All praise to the Most High, right? Israel, they Africa, they call it, is really called the land of Ham, right? Or Ham, right? C-A, right? In the Hebrew, right? It's Ham, right? The land of Ham, right? So let's get into this the Passover, man, right? Took place in the land of Egypt, and Egypt wasn't just some small miniature land. You had Upper Egypt, right? You had Upper and Lower Egypt, right? You had Upper and Lower Egypt, right? Upper and Lower Egypt, and Egypt went down to the borders of Ethiopia, right? Can't see that. All right, you see that? Let's try this, man. Right, and this is an example. You had the Egyptians, and they have certain crowns, man. And I believe it's their so-called king or pharaoh, Menes, right, who actually joined them there, like don't want to say Northern Kingdom or Southern Kingdom, but he joined the Lower Egypt and Upper Egypt together, right? How they switch this around and you have Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt. Point being, though, Egypt wasn't a small land, but Israel, and they were in Goshen, right? Right, Goshen, right? You read about that in the land in Genesis 41, right? And it was it was it's historically proven that people would go down into Egypt, right? They would go down into Egypt for what? When there was famine, when there's no water, people would go down into Egypt from Canaan, right? Saying, oh, well, how do you prove it? You can't prove, there's no proof. Hey, there's proof, right? We as Israelites, right, and you have to prove all things, man. And these Edomites, they've become a snare unto themselves. Some of them, the Most High has put a spirit on them to go and try and collect these artifacts and to prove it and to show you this happened and that happened, right? And they're showing you stuff, man, right? But I'm gonna get there, Lord willing. I think it's Genesis 41. I'm gonna jump down to verse. I've got my Bible in front of me as well, right? Let me get there. Yeah. That's it. Genesis 45, Salakia. Right. Genesis, and just on the point of the famine, right? This is Genesis 41, and you gotta zoom in, right? Genesis 41, right? And I'll start from verse 54. It says, and 7 years, it's like, and the 7 years of death began to come according as Joseph had said, and the death was in Salakia. I want to get that. Because in this old English, man, there be certain words there that are, I don't know if it's actually saying that. Right, okay, Darth, right, Salakia, right? Genesis 41, and I read verse 54. It says, and the 7 years of Darth began to come as according as Joseph had said, and the Darth was in all lands. That's famine, right? Right, let's just get that as well. Right, let's get that as well. Right, dearth. Right, it says a scarcity or lack of something. Right, and a lot of people, they have a lack of spirit, man. They have a lack of food. They're not eating, right, of the bread of life. They're not eating that. They're eating the nasty, crusty bread that they have in Lidl, right, and Sainsbury's and Tesco's, and everybody's put their hands on it, right? When you're in the truth, you're eating of the bread, man, right? You're eating of the righteous bread, man, the bread of life that comes down from heaven, right? And that bread of life is better than the manna, right? Although if I was there, I'd be glad to eat some of the manna, but the bread of life that come down, that's Yahweh Shai, right? It says, so it says this dearth or dearth, the scarcity or lack of something began to come as according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. So this is showing you why Jacob, right, sojourned in the land of Ham, right? They came down, and that's historic that you would have people from Canaan that will come into the land of Egypt, because Egypt had what? Egypt had the Nile River. They didn't need rain, go away. They didn't need that. They had the Nile. So a lot of ancient civilizations in that fertile crescent, right? They were pretty much blessed, right? That was a rich land to be in, right? So it says, I'll jump to the next. Just on that point, right? Genesis 42:1. Now, when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, why do you look one upon another? Because they're probably like, hey, man, we kind of sold our brother into Egypt, right? It, kind of fell away, right? It says, and he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down river and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die, right? See that? So, that's why when you read verse 3, it says, and Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt, right? So that's why they ended up in Egypt, right? That's why they ended up in Egypt, right? So, let's get into that, right? So now let's go into Genesis. We're going to go to Genesis 1 and we read verse 8, right? It says Genesis 1 and verse 8. It says, now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph, right? And again, that's that 18th dynasty, right? I believe, right? Where they had a change of king, because when you read through the time of the Exodus, man, right? Throughout that time period, you have different kings. When you see Pharaoh, don't think, this Pharaoh, his lives from Exodus 1 all the way to the damn right to the end of the to Exodus 40. It's the same Pharaoh, right? It's different pharaohs, right? That you have, right? But it says that there arose a new king which knew not Joseph, because remember we read Joseph, he was made a king, right? And he was made a power, right? That was under the Egyptian king, right? And he was ruling, right? He told him, look, yeah, make bread, make that bread, right? We jump down to right verse 12, right? See that? Right, this is Exodus chapter 1 and verse 12. So, hey, these Hamites, right? Like, Dinka tribe. You see that, right? Are these Dinkas, man? Right, these Dinkas, right? These are really, right? These are really your ethnic Hamites, right? They are a Nilotic, right? It says the Dinka people are a Nilotic ethnic group native to South Sudan, right? And South Sudan, right? Let me see that. Right, South Sudan that's Lower Egypt, right, or Upper Egypt, rather. Right, you gotta do this weird zoom and stuff again, right? You see that? So zoom it one more time. Cool. So look, right, you have here Egypt. Egypt is not just here, right? This is not. But now, some Edomites say, yeah, draw this line, and that's Egypt. That's just folly, right? That makes zero sense, right? It's a bit harder on a MacBook on this thing, but you have here South Sudan, right? South, you got Sudan. This would be Egypt was quite a big land, right? Egypt went all the way down, right? Get a quick preset, right? Egypt went all the way down to the borders of Ethiopia, right? And the Bible tells you this, man. But you know how people, oh yeah, Egypt, we're just Egyptians, we right, and right, the Egyptians, you get caught up in a lot of that funny man stuff, man. Right. So this is Ezekiel 29:10. It says, "Behold, therefore I am against thee and against thy rivers," right? You know that Nile River as well, and I will make the land of Egypt utterly waste and desolate from the tower of Syene even unto the border of Ethiopia, right? And Syene, right, would be in this around this region here, right? Syene would be around this region here, and the borders of Ethiopia, right? Excuse me, you can kind of see where the borders of Ethiopia are, right? So it's very plain, man. The Most High is telling you where Egypt was. Egypt wasn't just this damn cubicle here, right? Just here, right? And yes, the Hamites, they had some form of wisdom and knowledge, and that's the Most High that put it into them to build build up structures, right? And the bondage that they put the Israelites in, man, that's the Most High that put ordained that, right? You had these people come up to us at camp say, "Oh, where was God during slavery?" Hey, man, you were disobedient, man, right? But come on, this is Exodus 1:12. It says, let me go back up. It's Exodus 1:11, rather. Right? This is Exodus chapter 1 of verse 11. And it says, "Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Piton and Ramesses." Right? These are the cities that were built by the children of Yasha'Allah, right? They were built by them, right? And today, the modern day Egyptians, right? Have a guess. People say, "Oh well, who's the Egyptians?" Well, have a guess who your modern day Egyptians would be, right? This is the book of reading on, right? Exodus 1:12, right? It says, "But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel." Right. So in Egypt wasn't a fun time, and it was happy day and folly day and whatnot. Right. Egypt was hell. Right. Egypt is known, right, as what, man? Egypt is known as the house of bondage. Egypt is known as it's a metaphor, right, for slavery. Let's call it like that. They call it the plantation. This was Israel's first plantation, man. Right, this is Exodus 20 and verse 2. It says, "I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." Right, so Egypt is a place of bondage. Right, you might hear people say, "Oh, well, this feels like Egypt," but that's through the spirit, man, because that's a Jake or some Eve probably saying that she was in Egypt, man. Right, she was in Egypt. Right, the Jake was probably in Egypt. Right, in a regeneration. Right, but come on. So Egypt was hell, right? But let's why do we have to keep this, man? Right? Why do we follow? Okay, well, should we do this? Should we keep the? Well, yeah, you should, man. Right? You definitely should. You want to be a follower of Christ, man. Right? And if you're not following Christ, hey, then who you following, man? Right? If you don't follow Christ, who the hell, right, are you following? You following man, right? You want to follow man because, hey, man will sell you a lie, right? Man will sell you a lie, right? Slacky, I just want to get this quick, people, right? So first be Slacky, right? We get this quick precept, man. We don't want to follow man. We want to follow Yahweh Bashim, Yahushua, right? We want to do His will, right? Get a quick precept. We want to do His will. We don't want to. Oh, well, I'm doing what I think is right. People like to say, man. People like to say stuff like that. I'm gonna do what I think is right. And a lot of the time, are you gonna get jammed up, man? When you do what you think is right, and the Lord will get up with you, right? See that? This is Second Esdras, chapter 7. See that? I got a good. Always better when you have your Bible in front of you, right? Always better. See that? Second Esdras 3. All right, it's the book of Second Esdras, chapter 3, and verse. I'll start verse number 7. I'll start verse number 7. It says, and unto him, right? It's the Second Esdras 3 and verse number 7. It says, right? Second Esdras 3 and verse 7, and unto him thou gave us commandment to love thy way. Thy way. You see that? We have to love the way of the Most High. Right? We say, I love my way. I love my way. Like, we have to love the Lord's way, man. Right? Which he transgressed. Adam transgresses. And immediately thou appointest death in him and in his generations, of whom came nations, tribes, people, and kindreds out of number. And every people, listen to this, walked after their own will. So you see that? When you walk after your own will and you don't do the will of the Most High, you have no soul. You're soulless. You're lost. You're in the congregation of the dead. You're wondering, okay, well, you feel like you feel invincible, but the Most High, he said, ye are gods, but ye shall die like men. Because we're not really, we're supposed to be powers, but we're not powers. We're not gods, right? And when I say gods, right, I say Elohim or powers, right? Most people say, oh, they ain't saying you're gods, right? I knew you guys was wrong. I knew you. Well, you have to understand the meaning of that word, right? God, man, because Moses was made a power onto Pharaoh, right? So when we do the Most High's will, and that's what Moses done, and he was made a power because what? And he done the Lord's way, like it says in verse 7. He done the Lord's way, right? But when Adam transgressed it, it says verse 8, and every people walked after their own will and did wonderful things before thee and despised thy commandments. Because yeah, man, when you commit sin, that to you, that's wonderful. That's great to you, isn't it? When you fornicate, you're into some kind of fornication, right? That's great to you. But that's unholy in the eyes of Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, right? So, we have to walk in the way of the Lord, right? It's plain and simple, right? It's plain and simple. We don't want to walk according to what we feel, The Lord has given us rules, man, instructions, right? And our people are simple. We hate instructions, man. Right? The Lord said, keep the Passover. No. I'm keeping Holy Communion. Right? I'll start at verse 8. Right? This is Proverbs 9 and 8. It says, reprove not a scorner, lest he hate thee. Right? Because, hey, somebody that's just an idiot. Right? Let's say an idiot. Right? They're going to say, well, why are you telling me for? Right? Always finding a way, right, to get out of it, man. But it says, rebuke a wise man. Right? And rebuke doesn't always mean you're doing this, you're just standing and you're banging your staff. Right? It doesn't mean that. Right? Rebuke could be edifying somebody or correcting somebody. Hey, no, that's not really what it's for. The Passover really is about us, our deliverance. The Passover isn't just about the bread and the wine. It's about our deliverance, right? The suffering that we face, and really the atonement that we get through Yahushua, right? His blood, that we receive, man, which is that wine, right? We don't literally drink blood, man, right? Because that's breaking right, that Genesis 17, right, Leviticus 17 rather, right, and I think it's verse 11. It says verse 9, Proverbs 9 and 9. It says, "Give instruction to a wise man." So you have Israelites, right? Israelites, they're actually in this thing, and they're wise men, wise women, wise sisters, you know, wise brothers, right? Wise Akim and Akwath, right? It says, "And he will be yet wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning." So through keeping the way of the Most High, amen, we are made wiser. Through being edified or following after the statutes, we're made wise, man, right? We are made wise. We're made better. And we have a form of discipline, man, right? A routine. We're not just following any and everything, man. Right? So again, get this preset still. So like here. Right? Yeah. Right? This is the book. You see that? Right? We'll get the second reason why we gotta keep this. Because remember, to start with, it says that we need to remember the Passover. Right? It said, remember the Passover. Right? If you're not remembering it, that means you're not keeping it. Right? At all. Right? This is a book of First Peter. Right? And people say, "Oh, why did you guys keep these things? Right? Why did you guys do this?" Well, we do this because our Lord and Savior done it. Right? We don't just do it, okay, it's just a game and it's just for fun and stuff like that. It's just we're chilling and we want to just look cool. No, we don't do this, to be seen by men, man. We do this because we have faith. Right? This is the book of First Peter, chapter 2 and verse 21. It says, "For even hereunto were ye called, because Hamashiach, right, Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example." Right? Leaving us an example. Right? What example is that? Is that example of being a YN? Right? Right? Is that example of being a YN? Right? God knows what. You see that? Is this the example? Right? Is this the example that Christ gave? Right? To be smoking a blunt, right, and a backwood, right? Right? Or a GM, man. Right? A GM, right? Gang member, UK. Look, you see that? And they go, "Oh, these are not examples, man." Right? These are not examples to be like, man. You see that? So Christ, he actually left us an example, man. Right? That ye should follow his steps. Right? And Christ kept the Passover. Right? Christ, he ate of the lamb. Right? See that? Right? He ate that, man. Right? We'll get to that as well. Right? This is First Peter 2 and 22. It says, "Who did no sin." Right? So if he did no sin, that means he did what? Kept the commandments. Neither was guile found in his mouth. Right? So he did no sin. Right? What is sin? Right? Is sin just remember, this is an example that he left. Is sin just whatever the hell you want it to be? Right? Is sin, okay, sin is just missing the mark and things. And I just that we tired of hearing that, man. All right, show us in the Bible what sin is, because once we find out what sin is, right, you're gonna come to so-called get cut with a sharp sword, man. Because Now you read, oh, sin is transgression of the Lord. Oh, right. So this is Deuteronomy 6 verse 17. Right, I'll praise to the Most High, man. You know, it says, "Ye shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God and his testimonies and his statutes which he hath commanded thee." Right. So the statutes, right, commandments, the testimony, and the testimonies, right, that's the law. Right. These are that's the law. Right. These are the laws. Right. Even pulled up in a right. 326 17. Right. I'm gonna put it up in the Lord. Right. The testimony. Right. Like the covenant, man. Right. You see that? See that? So testimony or witness, right? It says always prove and always laws as divine testimony, right? Right, the testimony. So that's like a testament, right? The New Testament, right, isn't again a testament is a testimony, right? It's not just some piece of paper, right? So reading on, and it says, verse 18, "And thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest go in and possess the good land which the Lord swear unto thy fathers." So, hey man, we have to do that which is right. So that which is right, hey, that's the commandments, man. The law is good, right? Right, and another precept, right? First Samuel, right, I believe it's 15, right? Another precept, right? Samuel 24, right? See that? So like in First Samuel, right? On the point of sin, right? Brother kind of gave some a good edification on this point, right? This is First Samuel 15 and verse 24. It says, "And Saul said unto Salakia, and Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and thy words, because I feared the people and obeyed their voice." See that? So when you start obeying man's voice, and what he, oh yeah, well, I'm a man. I'm a man. You gotta listen to me, right? That you start going to damn these damn freak off clubs, man, right? And people are pouring drinks on women, right? Wearing absolutely nothing. That's transgressing the law, man, right? Damn covetous. It says, "I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord." That would be sin, right? So now, what is it that Christ? Did Christ just do what he wants? No, Christ was a man of integrity, and he followed the instructions, man. People say, "Oh, well, what do you mean by that?" Right? Right, let's get Leviticus 23. Right? Chiefly, you read about the Passover, right? You can read about that in Exodus 12, right? But Leviticus 23, it does speak of the different holy days, man. It speaks of the different holy days, right? So this is the book of Leviticus, chapter 23. Jump down. Right, here we go. See that? So this is Leviticus 23. I'm going to start from verse number 4, right? And it says, "These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations." And a holy convocation, whatever situation you're in, right, you can make it work, right? You might be at home, you can make it work, right? But a holy convocation is a gathering. You would gather together, right? It says, "Which ye shall proclaim in their seasons." So, you have like the Feast of Ingathering, right? I believe that's your tabernacles towards the end of the year, right? Dedications as well, in the winter, like it says in John 10, right? You have Feast of First Fruits, right? Pentecost, right? That's around your May time, right? There's certain feasts for different seasons, right? That you shall proclaim, you shall keep, man. says, and it says, in the 14th day of the first month, right? And the first month we know is Abib, right? At even, right? So that's at sundown. So this is the 15th day, right? But we know the 14th day at sundown is the 15th day, right? Is the Lord's Passover, right? So anyway, we gotta rehearse this act. Reading on, it says, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days must you eat unleavened bread, right? So from that 15th, right, April 11th, sundown, right? Hey, that's the day that you gotta have a roasted your lamb, man. You know what I'm saying, right? And you know, everyone these situations, how they go about dealing with that feast day, you know, hey, keep it to the best of your ability, man. Right? Saying, oh well, I can't. Hey, well, you got to figure it out. You got to try and figure it out, right? You want to try and figure it out, man. This is Colossians 3. Some saying, oh, you take a picture, right, of your Passover. Hey, man, it'll pray to the Most High, right? You've tried your best, right? And when I say try, you've done your best rather than try. It's Colossians 3 and 23. It says, and whatsoever ye do, do it heartily, right, heartily, as to the Lord and not unto men. Don't, oh well, what should I do it? You know, because I want, now you're one person, right? You're one person, right? And you buy yourself a lamb. You buy yourself a whole piece of lamb, right? Right? Whole lamb, whole lamb, because you gotta burn that, right? You gotta burn that after you've only eaten a little bit. And I say, yeah, okay, that's it. You ate it in haste, and now you gotta burn that, right? So it says, do it heartily, right? So you know, I do your best in how you go about doing that, right? So come on, let's go back to that in uh Leviticus 23, right? So yeah, man, I Christ kept this, man, right? Christ kept the feast of unleavened bread, right? And he ate lamb, right? So this is Leviticus 23, right? And I'll start from verse 6. It says, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread, right? So unleavened bread, right? You know, Lord and brothers will put out, you know, or brothers have been putting out images or, you know, things in regarding to foods that have, you know, leaven that you have to stay away from, right? In your foods, right? So your food that you eat must be unleavened bread, right? Reading on, it says, in the first day ye shall have an holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein. So on the first day, right, you know, the 11th at sundown, hey, that's a holy, it's like, it'd be like a Shabbat, right? Obviously, you can cook because you'd have to, you know, your lamb, man, right? So it says, no servile work shall be done, right? Reading on, it says, but ye shall offer an offer. So okay, but ye shall offer an offering by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the seventh day is a holy convocation, shall do no servile work therein. Right? So on that day, hey man, gather together, man. Right? You can do many things throughout that time, right? You know. So, you know, in the time of the Exodus was the lamb. Hey, they ate lamb, man. We had a guy at camp, he said like, oh Christ. He said Christ didn't eat it. Christ didn't eat lamb. All right. Let's see what they say for this. It's in the Passover. Yeah, you see that? Right. This guy didn't eat it, man. Right? With his dad, he's got what's that? Lamb chops. See that? He's got lamb chops and no mustache, man. Like that's probably All of these are Judas, man. Right? All of these are Judas. Right? So the Holy Communion in Christianity, right? The origin of the Holy Communion, also known as a Eucharist, right? Is a Christian service or ceremony, right? Or the Lord's Supper is rooted in the Last Supper, a meal Jesus shared with his disciples the night before his crucifixion, where he instituted the practice and trusted them to do it to remembrance of me while sharing bread and wine. And they had lamb as well, right? They had lamb as well, right? It's not just we don't let these Jakes fool you, right? These Jake pastors, and they just right, they have this thing, and yeah, man, this weird thing, man. This some kind of funny stuff, man. Right? You forgetting the lamb, though. You forgetting the lamb, right? You forgetting the lamb, right? So this is Exodus 12:5. It says, "Your lamb shall be without blemish." Right? Christ is the lamb without blemish, right? Slain before the foundation of the earth, right? A male of the first year, right? Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, right? So it's supposed to be a lamb, right? It's supposed to be a lamb. You say, okay, well, I'm gonna get a goat. Hey, a goat's a stubborn animal, right? Now you're eating the he goat, man. Right? It says, and ye shall keep it the 14th day of the same month. Right? Second, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So that's the time when they would kill the Passover, right? In the evening, right? Right. So that's the 15th day. You'd kill the Passover, right? And like we said, hey, you might not have the ability to do that, right? As you know, but hey, like you said in Colossians 3 and I believe 23, you do it heartily, right? Heartily, rather, right? Keep the Passover to the best of your ability, man. Right? To the best of your ability. All right, let me pull up again. Right? I don't want to read all the way down. I'm going to kind of jump through. Right? So I'm gonna jump down here. I'll probably kind of read through a bit, but this is Exodus 12:7. And they shall take of the blood, right? So the blood from the Passover, from the lamb, right, and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorpost of the house wherein they shall eat it. So this blood, right, really is representing the atonement, right? It's representing atonement. I'm gonna open that slide, right? It's representing atonement and the covering that Yahweh Shai's blood has on us, right? That's what it represents. People saying, okay, well, I'm not eating that. I don't eat, or it's called symbolism, right? It's metaphoric. We had one Passover where somebody wanted to, they were a vegan, or and they didn't want to eat. They didn't want to eat the lamb. They didn't want to eat the lamb. And I don't think they did, man. I don't even think they did eat the lamb. But hey, the Most High knows. But that's you might be a vegan or you're vegetarian, you're pesky. Hey, on that day, hey, you have to eat the lamb. There's no okay. Well, can we have what did they say? Man? They said, what's them vegan foods, man? Right, a vegan meat replacement, right? I don't know what food it was, man. But they tried to get a vegan meat replacer. Something about, I think it was soya bean. They tried to say, well, some soybean, man, or something, man. Right? I don't know if it was tofu or something, man. You can't. We're not literally eating the body of Yahweh Shai. It's already been replaced with a lamb, But now we're gonna replace the replacement, and we're gonna how does that make sense, man? I don't know if they said it was jackfruit, right? And or something, but they wanted to replace the lamb with a vegan replacement, right? This is already the lamb itself that we of listed in Exodus 12. That's already a replacement, right? This is Exodus 12, right? And verse number 11, straight to the point. It says, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood," right? So Yahushua's blood, there's life in that. So when you're covered with the blood of Yahushua, man, that's life. You're made new. When you receive that blood, man, you're made new, man. Right? Because that blood was shed for the remission of sins. Right? It says, "And I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls." So Yahushua's blood, man, was given unto us literally when you read Exodus 24, man. Exodus 24, where Moses sprinkled the blood, right? That's Yahushua's blood, man. Right? Because that's the covenant being established. Right? It says, "For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul," right? For the soul. So Yahushua's blood, when we read in Exodus 24, right? His blood was shed then, man. Right? His blood was shed then. Right? It wasn't just shed, okay, yeah, Matthew 27. Right, oh, yeah, that's where he died. Hey, it says slain from the foundation, from the beginning of the, paraphrasing greatly, the beginning of the foundation of the earth, right? Slain before the foundation of the earth, right? It's Exodus 24, and verse number 8, right? It says, "And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people," right? This is the blood of the covenant, right? This is on a deep level at the blood of Yahushua, right? Because his body, right, was shed for Israel, man. It wasn't shed for everyone. Because if it was shed, why didn't they sprinkle it on the Egyptian, right? You got the Hamite baby with 1,000 flies, and Moses said, "Yeah, him in the back," right? And sprinkled it on the people and said, "Behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord have made with you concerning all these words," right? This wasn't for Hamites, right? Or the Edomite. It wasn't, it was for the Hebrew Israelites, right? Let's say that, right? It was for the Hebrew Israelites, right? Right, Salakia, right? But for everyone, man, right? Playing upon tables, right? Let me get that as well, right? In Revelation chapter 5, right? Because Yahushua is the Lamb, right? This is Revelation, Salakia 5 and verse, Revelation 5, right? Shalom as well, Shalom. Right, this is Revelations chapter 5, and I'll start from verse. You see that? Revelation 5 and 9, it says, "And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals, for thou wast slain." Right? "Thou wast slain and has redeemed us to God by thy blood." And this is not, it's why Christianity is just funny, man. They'll say, "Okay, this is the Most High. It's the Most High's blood." Where do you see the Most High bleeding, man? When he was constructing the earth, he kind of cut himself. It said, "Redeemed us to God by thy blood and out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation." This is talking about who? The Lamb, right? The Lamb's blood, right? When you read in verse 7, right? The Lamb, right? When you read Revelation 5, it tells you about the Lamb that's been slain, right? And who's the Lamb, man? Is the Lamb Shaun the sheep, right? Oh yeah, Shaun the sheep, Right? Look, the lamb is Yahushua. Right? Right? This is the book of John, chapter 1, verse 29. It says, the next day, John seeth Yahushua coming unto him, and saith, behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sin of the world. Right? We say, oh, it's the whole world. It's the whole world. No, it's not the whole world. No. This is the world, right, of Yashar, right? The Israelites, right? Because again, that word, the word world in the Greek, going to like a government or a group of people, right? And you can, Hebrews 1 and 2 tells you about, the multiple worlds that were made, right? Different nations, right? So Yahushua is the Lamb of God, right? The Lamb without blemish, right? He is the Lamb without blemish, right? His body didn't, it says paraphrasing, I think it's in 16. Here we go. Yeah, this is Exodus. This is Psalms chapter 16 and verse number 10. And Yahushua was the right hand that destroyed all the Egyptians, right? Their firstborn. But now, for some reason, now he's going to come back and it's going to be peaceful. And he's going to say, okay, it's fine. You guys made your mistakes. And, well, it doesn't work like that. Right? This is Psalm 16 and 10. It says, for thou will not leave my soul in hell, neither will thou suffer thine holy one to see corruption. Right? Yahushua's body, right? Like it said with Lazarus, man. Right? It says that his body's paraphrasing, it stinketh. Right? Because when a man, dies, or a woman dies, their body decays. Right? So Yahushua, his body, didn't see corruption, and this is talking about Yahushua. Right? Stop talking. Right? If you think it's talking about the Most High, right? Check your spirit. Right? It's talking about Yahushua. Right? Again, it's not going to be a super long breakdown. Right? But I'm gonna read a bit into Luke 22, because Luke 22, right, really one of my favorites. Right? Kind of going into that Passover. Right, but this is Luke 22 and 1. Showing you, Yahushua, he kept the Passover. Right? This is Luke 22 and 1. Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, right? Which is called the Passover. And these are the famous acts that are spoken of where, man, in Exodus. What happened to these Egyptians? Right? Well, we don't know about this. And, this happened, man. This really happened. Right? So the Passover we read in Exodus 12, Leviticus 23, you can read throughout the law of the keeping of the Passover. These are things we do in our remembrance. We don't just it's banter and it's just things that we do. And hey man, you gotta keep the Passover, man. Right? You gotta keep the Passover. Right? They can't. We do not. Right? So Passover, we read it to that earlier, right? It says, and the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people, right? So the chief priests and scribes, right, they were just niggers, right? They were niggers, right? Let's put it like that. They had hate, and they were keepers of the law, so to say, but they were hypocrites, because why they seek to kill Yahushua, man? Right? Why do they seek to kill Yahushua? Right? This is John 8. Let me jump down. So that, yeah. I'm gonna jump down for this one. See that? Right. See that? This is John 8 and verse 56. And it says, Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. That's referencing Genesis 18, right? Jesus Christ, so called a Yahushai, right? As Melchizedek, he walked the earth, man. Before the New Testament, so called, was written, right? Well, because even in the time of Christ, the New Testament wasn't written, right? But Christ, he walked the earth before Matthew, right? You see in the book of Matthew, he walked the earth, right? Reading on it says, then said the Jews unto him, thou art not yet 50 years old, and thou hast seen Abraham, right? Because a lot of these different Israelite sects, right? And they were very carnal, man, and they didn't really understand, you know. Reading on it says, how shall I said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, right, I am, right? Genesis 14 as well, right? I gave the bread and the wine, right? In Genesis 14, I believe it's verse maybe 12, right? Yahushai, right? As Melchizedek, right? He gave the bread and the wine, man, right? You can read that in the book of Psalms, chapter 110, right? It's the book of Psalms, chapter 110, and verse number 4. It says, see that? The Lord hath sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, right? So that's talking about Christ, right? He is a priest forever, right? After the order of Melchizedek. And Melchizedek, he gave a covenant meal, right, with Abraham, right? There was a covenant meal, right? And Yahushua, he is the same as that, right? Because he was Melchizedek, right? Reading on it, it says, verse 5. I want to read this as well. It says, the Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. Because when you read in Exodus, right, just to not to go too far off topic, that was Yahushua, right? The right hand of the Lord, right? Like it says in Exodus, Psalms 110, verse 1, paraphrasing, the Lord said unto my Lord, right? Any OT onlys, you don't have to do it. They say, oh, it's a different, somebody else wrote it. The Lord said unto my Lord, right? So which Lord is David? Which Lord is it? Oh, David didn't write. Which Lord is that, right? I said, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit down at my right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool, right? So that's Yahushua, he's the right hand of the Most High. He's what they're doing, right? This is Exodus 15 and 6, right? Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, have dashed in pieces the enemy, man. Because Yahushua, he came down, man, with one of those reaper sticks, man, right? A scythe. I believe it's called a scythe, right? Scythe. Wheat. Not sift. Well, and the Lord is sifting people, man. I believe it's called a scythe, right? Scythe. See that? That's some damn reaper for wheat, right? You got these reaper, not even a machine, right? Yahushua, he's Grim Reaper, man, right? He came down with one of these things, right? And he was doing that, right? To the other nations, man, and to the Egyptians more specifically, right? I don't know what it's called, though, right? We want to put out, right? What is it called? You gotta find the name. A sickle, right? Is it a sickle? Right? Hey, I wish I had a sickle, man. That's it. This is what I wanted, right? A scythe. I don't know how you pronounce it, right? A scythe, a scythe or something like that, right? And they use this to cut the wheat, right? That's what Yahushua has, man. The Grim Reaper, man. Like, you got to eat them up and they cut in the grass or whatever they're cutting, man. Right? See that? So that's Yahushua, man. But anyway, back to John 8, and I'll read on from verse 59. It says, Then they took up stones to cast at him, but Yahushua hit it. See that? So they just were haters, man, because the truth hurts, right? They were haters. They didn't like the truth. They didn't understand it, right? But Yahushua hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by, right? So you don't want to follow a wicked multitude to do evil, right? That's what the damn Pharisees done, man. But you had, and it's not all of the so-called Pharisees, right? The Sadducees, right? It's not all of them. You had Nicodemus, right? You had, guys that actually believed in Christ, man, right? The chief priests. I'm not going to another precept, right? 22. Right, it's the book of Luke, chapter 9, and verse 22. Because it wasn't everybody that didn't believe on Yahushua. This is Luke 9 and 22, saying, The Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected of their elders, chief priests, and scribes, and be slain and raised the third day. See that? So you had these are the main haters, right? And they were supposed to be keepers of the law, but hey, man, they were keepers of hypocrisy, right? This is Exodus chapter, because you these a lot of this Exodus 23 like really applies to a lot of those that were hypocrites and against what Mashiach Yahushua was teaching. Right, Exodus 23 and 1, it says, Thou shalt not raise a false report, put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Because they tried to, when they were judging, and they're supposed to judge righteously. When they were judging the matter, they said, okay, no, who, trying to bid Yahweh, they made Yahweh speak, right? Right? And Yahweh didn't break that law of Exodus, I believe, 22, and I think 28, to not revile the gods, man, right? The powers that were above it, because there was a power above him, right, at that time, right? The chief priest, right? The high priest, rather, right? And then he said, look, I bid thee, right? Right, by how washing your shy, tell us. And Yahweh had to kind of say, yeah, he said what he said, right? So it says, Thou shalt not raise false report, put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness, right? You can't be oh yeah, this brother, he done this, and you don't even know, right? You might assume, or yeah, you can ask questions, but you don't want to be a false witness, man, right? Reading on, it says, Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. And they were wresting judgment, man, because they were lying, making false accusations, saying false statements, saying, "Oh yeah, this guy, he said he's God, man." Right? How should I say? Hey, my father and I are one. Right? They speak the same thing. They're on one accord. Right? And they said, "Yeah, get this guy, man." Right? So they were hypocrites, man. Right? Like it says in Matthew. Let's get that. They were hypocrites. They didn't really they're like the people that like the Bible when it suits them. Right? So this was like this in Matthew 23, this was like Yahushua's diss track, man. Right, against these hypocrites. And they had no other way to get rid of this guy, But this is part of the prophecy. Right? So let me get this right. Here we go. This is Matthew 23 and 23. It says, Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. Right? Because they were hypocrites. Right? They're supposed to be judging righteously, doing the things of the law. right? For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, right? Because they've omitted judgment of how they dealt with Yahushua, mercy, and they try to tell people to stone the lady, man. But hey, whoever is without sin, they cast the first stone. And faith, these ye ought to have done, and not to leave, and not to leave the other undone. And they pick and choose, right? I want this, and not actually sincerely, follow him, man, right? So they were hypocrites, man, right? They were hypocrites, right? We got around 20 more minutes, right? 20 more minutes probably for this, right? But we try and get as further as we can, right? See that? So this is Luke 22 and verse 2. It says, and the chief priests and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people. Right? So they were wicked, man. Like, they were wicked, right? The precept in Proverbs about that. They were really wicked, man. Right? They hated their brother, man. Right? They hated their brother. Yeah, you see that? They hated their brother. Right? See that? The book of Proverbs, chapter 24, verse 1, it says, be not thou envious against evil men, neither desire to be with them. Right? Because Judas, man, right? Judas, and you got Judas is around today, man. Right? It's the Passover, and they're thinking how they can overthrow you, saying, yeah, I'm gonna see you at the Passover. And they're thinking about how they're gonna creep into your house, man, and steal your baby's nappies, right? Because they're being a bum. And you be trying to help the brother, and they have evil intentions, right? Right, reading on it says, for their heart studieth destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. Right, so the lips of the Pharisees and the scribes, man, sorting, okay, right, and that's how you see that, right? Or reading on, selected, right? It says, verse 23, Luke 22 and 3. It says, then entered Satan into Judas, named Iscariot, being of the number of the 12. Right, so Satan, right, the spiritual demon Satan, he tempted Judas. Judas must have been, weak, but no, but he couldn't have been weak though, because he was one of the 12, right? He was just he loved the flesh, man, right? He loved the flesh, right? He said, okay, what did he say with the right? He was carnal, man. He must have been a mighty guy though to be one of the 12, but he was carnal, right? You see that? This is John 12 and 3. It says, then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Yahushua, and wrapped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Right? Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him. Right? Reading on it, it says, why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? So he said, hold on. Right? Why don't we get... He didn't care though when you read that, but let's see 300 pence in Roman in the time of Christ. Right? Let's see how much that will cost. See that? Roughly to a year's wages. Hey, see, that's damn, that's a lot. Right? Right? That's 300 denarii. So, right, 300 denarii. Right? Let's see how much that is today. Okay, so today supposedly that would be in the UK around £843, right? 843 pounds, right? Supposedly, right? It might have been a lot then, man. Wait, hold on. It's saying 17. Well, it must have been a lot of money. Let's put it like that, right? But nonetheless, it says, he asked, why wasn't this given to the poor, right? But Jake, man, he's always thinking of something else in his mind, right? This is a book of John 12:6. This he said, not that he cared for the poor. So he don't give a damn. He said, "Man, I don't care," right? But because he was a thief and had the bag. So watch out for people that say, "Yeah, I got the bag. I'm trying to get to the bag this summer," because they would do any and everything for that, man. It says, "And bear that what was put therein," right? So you don't want to be someone that's just got, I got the bag. I got the bag. Yeah, watch out for people that have the bag, man. Look at what happened in Acts 5, right? With Ananias, man. Look, see that? Say Ananias. This is Acts chapter 5 and verse 3. But Peter said, Ananias, why has Satan filled thine heart to lie to the Holy Ghost and to keep back part of the price of the land, man? So Ananias, he kind of said, yeah, we made five. He told his rib, right? Yeah, we made 500, but we're going to tell them it was 250. And she said, yeah, you right, King, you right, King. And then they went and done that. And he got struck down, man. Right? He said, whilst it remained, was it not thine own? And after it was sold, was it not in thine own power? See that? So he had the strength to go. Well, he had the strength to go and say, look, this is it. Why hast thou conceived this thing in thine heart, right? In his mind. Right? Because that's how Satan gets to you, man. Starts in your mind. Makes you think and doubt. It says, thou hast not lied unto men, but unto God. Right? And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the ghost. And great fear came on all them that heard these things. Right. So don't be an Ananias, man. Don't be a Judas. Right? Because he had the bag, man. Right? Because Satan's trying to sift people out. Right? A few more days until Passover, man. Right? Satan is trying to sift people out, man. Don't be a Satanist. Right? And people say, why is Satan? Satan is just doing his job. Satan is working at 24/7, man. Right? Like he said in Job 2. Hey, man, or Job 1. Whence comest thou? Right? And most I ask him, whence comest thou? I'm doing my thing. I'm going up and down. Right? I'm going up and down in the world, man. Right? This is James 4 and verse 7, man. To submit yourself, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you, slacker. So, hey, you really resisting the devil, man. Passover's coming up, and you're still thinking, right? This might be your third Passover, man. You're still thinking about some damn whore in the world, and saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? This Israelite thing, this Israelite thing is wrong." But your mind is not right. Your mind is not right. You need to submit, therefore, to God. And people don't really want to submit to the Most High or submit to some form of authority, right? They hate, hate being rebuked. They hate somebody, telling them anything, man. Right? And that's hypocrisy, which is a spirit that Satan will put, that Satan had on these scribes and Pharisees, man. Right? We're going to be here for too long, right? But this is Ecclesiasticus chapter 32 and verse 15. He that seeketh the law shall be filled therewith, but the hypocrite, right? The hypocrite will be offended there, right? So the hypocrite, you can't tell me to keep the Passover. I'm gonna do what I want to do. Hey man, hey man, Peter was Paul submitted to the Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and he was a killer. Right? He submitted. So, and there's no excuses, man. Oh well, why did this guy do and why? Well, it's not asking questions, man. Right? So when you're a soldier, man, right? And you get down or lay down. That's how the Most High works, man. And yeah, of course there is mercy, right? But hey, you get down or lay down, man. You pick your side of the fence, right? You don't want to be playing and enticing and being enticed by these nasty demons, man, right before Passover, man. And just even outside of Passover, right? Read on. Salaki. And he went his way, Luke 22 and 4, and he went his way and communed with the chief priests and captains how he might betray him unto them. See that? So they were off, man. Right? They were just off, man. All right, let's get to him. Look at you. They were off. Right? They were just, I'm all about the money and like this guy, he talks too much. Right? And that's a off thing to do, man. Right? You see this man, and Christ was out there, man. He said, I'm not really hiding. Where they at, dude? Right? This is Sirach chapter 20 to Sirach. This is Proverbs 24 and verse 8. He that deviseth to do evil shall be called a mischievous person. That's why Judas, man, he kind of went and he hung himself, man. He said, yeah, I can't take it. And he tried to give the money back. He tried to give the money back. He said, yeah, look, I've done the wrong thing and I'm so sorry. Well, we don't want nothing to do with that. You done what you done. Right? So you're going to be a mischievous person if you're devising to do evil, wicked, and sin. Right? It says, the fault of foolishness is sin. And that's just a foolish thing to do. And the scorner is an abomination unto men. So pick your side of the fence, man. Right? Don't be I'm Judas. I'm Judas. Hey, you don't name your son Judas, man. Right? There's probably somebody called Judas in the world today, and their parents didn't think that through. Right? See that? And it's all about money, isn't it? Luke 22, verse 5, and they were glad and covenanted to give him money. Right? You see that? So the book of Sirach, chapter 5, verse 8. Right? And it says, set not thine heart upon goods unjustly gotten, but they shall not profit thee in the day of calamity. Right? So hey man, this time yeah, I'm the money guy, I'm the money man, and I make this and hey, well, look at what Judas done, man. He was the money guy, the guy that had the bag, and the Nigh and his wife, and they got rolled up, man, and they got them out, man. That's one of the scenes. I'd love to picture how that kind of went down. Right, it must have been someone's house, right? Probably candles and whatnot. And the Nihus walks in. Yeah, here's the money. I done my bet. And this guy is lying, man. Peter probably looking at him like, right, and other, apostles and looking at, right? And then he kind of says, and he kind of just drops dead, man. Everyone's kind of confounded. And everybody's scared of Peter. Right? So it says, don't set your heart, your mind, upon goods unjustly gotten. Right? And just because a man sits down to eat food with you doesn't mean his mind is with you. Right? But how shall I need it? Right? How shall I need it? Right? This is Sirach. I keep saying Sirach. This is Proverbs 23, verse 7. It says, For as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. So, Judas, Ananias, his wife, who else? Saul, right? Cain, Esau, right? These people, they're off, man, right? Hymenaeus, right? These kind of reprobates, right? They might, appear to be with you, right? In his heart, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, saith he to thee, but his heart is not with thee. So really, his mind is not really with you. He's about his own thing, man. He's doing, I'm doing my thing. I'm about the bag. I'm about to watch out for them kind of people, man. That's Judas, man. Right? And that's how Satan will get you, man. Right? Didn't Satan say to Christ, I'll give you all of these things. All you have to do. Right? And that's what Judas done, man. He made a deal. They say dancing with the devil. That's what he done. Right? This is Matthew chapter 4, verse 8. It says, and the devil, it's like again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. And that's just like in that movie Matrix. You have that Edomite, right? And he's eating the steak or whatever. And they're saying, oh yeah. And he sold out Neo, man. Right? He sold out Neo. For just a little bit, just so for some steak or something, man. Right? And all these fake foods. Right? Reading on, it says, and saith unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. So that's what happens when you give in to Satan and you don't submit to the Most High Yahweh Shem Shai. Why not your Christian pastor, man? Right? When you submit to Yahweh Shem Shai, right, and pray, right, and you actually pray, man. The Lord give you the power to fight over these demons, man. Right? You have to submit to the Most High, though, with all your heart, with all your mind. Do everything you do heartily. Right? This is Mark 11:24. Therefore I say unto you, whatsoever things ye desire when you pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Right? When you pray against these, imagine if Judas, imagine how things would have went. Obviously, all things are ordained of the Most High, as it is already. But imagine if Judas, and he prayed, and he said, oh, you know what? It's like Yahweh, he might not say Bashimi al Shai, but it's like Yahweh, he might ask for forgiveness, man. But it would have been Yahweh Bashimi al Shai, actually, man. Right? Because no one can get to the Father except through the Son. Right? And if you're trying to do that, you're a thief. Right? So when you ask, you pray, that's where you ask for a deliverance, man. Didn't that happen to Simon, right? Or Peter, rather. Simon, right? See that? This is Luke chapter 22 and verse 31. Really, I wanted to go into a breakdown of Luke 23, but I think it was a bit better to go like this. But this is Luke 22 and 31. It says, and the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. And that's what the Lord is doing, man. Right? That's what the Lord is doing. It's a few days. If Satan's he's watching, who's going to fall out before Passover? Which guy that's going to just get trodden down, right? By spiritual demon Satan, man. Right? Satan's watching, man. He's watching these freaky websites, right? Going in all places to do your lust, man. You gotta be sober, man. Right? This is 1 Peter 5 and 8. It says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. right? That's what Satan does, man. He's saying, well, this guy, yeah, his spirit's not really on fire. He's not on fire. He's not reading. He's not studying, man. He's not even keeping the commandments, man. He's not keeping the faith ultimately, because your faith encompasses everything else. So, like, you're wondering, oh, why is this happening? Hey, because that's what the Most High ordained to happen to you, right? So, I got one more precept, right? The Lord willing, everyone has, you make it to see Passover, man. We're waiting for that real Passover to happen, our deliverance, right? But this is Galatians chapter 5 and verse. I'll just read verse 18. Will I? Right, this is Galatians chapter 5 and verse number. This is a very good precept. This is, I'll start at verse 17. Galatians 5 and 17. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary one to another, so that you cannot do the things that you would. See that? So, hey, that's deep, man. What your spirit is thinking, your flesh is saying, nah, and it's vice versa. So you have to watch and pray, man, that you don't enter the temptation, just like Christ said. Because if you're not watching and praying, Satan is around the corner, saying, yeah, this guy, he's weak. He's slothful. He doesn't do nothing. He's never at camp, right? He's not putting in a brick in, right? There's many offices that you can grow in, man. Right? Reading on. It says, the last precept, but if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law. Meaning what? Man, we have grace and mercy, but it doesn't mean we don't keep by the commandments, don't we? Right? That says in Romans 6, man. Right? We still keep the commandments, but we do it heartily, to the best of our ability. Right? So, hey, man, you gotta figure out a way how you're gonna keep that feast of unleavened bread, man, the Passover, man. Or Shimi or Shai. So with that, pray everyone was somewhat edified, and the Passover draws nigh, man. Start checking your items, right? You pick this up. Does this have leaven in it? Right? And vinegar is not a leaven agent, right? Vinegar only becomes a leavening agent once it is mixed with something, like bicarbonate soda. That's when it becomes a leavening agent. So you gotta check these things, man. Like it says Sarah 5:15, right? But all praise to the Most High, right? Pray everyone, is preparing diligently for feast of unleavened bread, man, right? And with that, I'll see. Shalom.